Wan Jun Yoon, Ricky Birdsong. These two kind men were murdered the weekend of July 4th, 1999, for not being white. Murdered by hate, murdered by my student. I won't say his name. He killed this exchange student from Korea, this African American father who was walking with his children. His hate knew no bounds, and the burning core of his hatred was for Jews. His delusional attempt to trigger a race war started in the Jewish community of West Rogers Park in Chicago, where he shot 5 men and a 15-year-old boy. 2 decades later, Rabbi Hesh Epstein of Columbia, reflecting on the Tree of Life atrocity in my hometown of Pittsburgh, helped us understand that hatred of Jews always comes bound up with hatred of others. Indeed, we are all bound up together. We have heard this story before in the mosque in New Zealand and the church in Charleston. We're bound up together even if we try to build walls or unfriend one another. But the story of hate is only half the story. Other stories right under our noses have been neglected or deliberately erased. Whose stories are not told, whose voices are not heard. Consider Charleston's Septima Clark. She fought for justice decades before the civil rights movement as we knew it took root. At the Highlander School in Tennessee, one of two places in the South where blacks and whites could mix freely and equally, she trained an activist named Rosa Parks. The other place where blacks and whites could mix freely was the Penn Center on the Sea Islands of South Carolina. Rosa Parks, with the recent murder of Emmett Till fresh on her mind, would not move from her seat, inspiring the boycott that propelled 25-year-old Martin Luther King to the global prominence that would earn him the Nobel Peace Prize in less than a decade. He took Septima Clark to the award ceremony in Oslo, and Oslo, a half century later, suffered one of the most devastating atrocities ever perpetrated by a single extremist. The Penn Center was founded in 1862 as a school for freed men. Their teachers were missionaries from the Quaker and Unitarian communities of Philadelphia. That same Philadelphia Quaker community gave us Bayard Rustin, who became one of the most important figures in American history because he believed in nonviolence, and he is also one of the least known because he was gay and unashamed. Bayard Rustin traveled to India to study nonviolence with Mahatma Gandhi, but Gandhi was assassinated by yet another extremist before he had even arrived. It was Rustin who persuaded Martin Luther King that nonviolence was the only path to equality and justice. Gandhi had been influenced by the racism of colonialism, and his early views about Africans led the University of Ghana to remove his statue a few years ago. But he grew and changed. Gandhi saw the violence of colonialism in South Africa through the Boer War in the land that would birth apartheid and jail Nelson Mandela. Mandela, sitting in his cell, drew inspiration and encouragement from the diary of Anne Frank during his 29 long years in confinement on Robben Island, just as he inspires us today. German troops practiced many of the methods of murder they would unleash on Europe's Jews just north of South Africa in today's Namibia. Shortly after the Boer War and the 20th century's first genocide, the German colonial authorities created camps for the Herero people, slaughtering and starving women and children. Racism is too often a death sentence for those it targets, but it need not be a life sentence for those under its sway. Change is possible. Judge Julius Watis Waring of Charleston, South Carolina, although still a typical white supremacist lawyer at age 60, developed a friendship with Septima Clark and transformed into a force for justice, pushing Thurgood Marshall to challenge the separate but equal doctrine and crafting the language of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision. Judge Waring had presided over the case of Sergeant Isaac Woodard, one of our 900,000 Black World War II veterans, heroes of the struggle against Hitler. Sergeant Woodard, still in uniform, had his eyes gouged out by a local police chief. The crime went unpunished. Another Black veteran, Matthew Perry, returned to the land of Jim Crow to see white waitresses flirt inside a restaurant with Italian POWs, the enemy that he had given 3 years of his life to defeat, while he in uniform was not permitted inside. This experience burned for this icon of the civil rights movement and future judge, yet he insisted, never look down on a man unless you're helping him up. Here in Columbia, I sit just a mile from where German POWs were held on the native land of the Congaree people. The belief systems that decimated the native peoples, that dragged Africans from their shores to be exploited, that sent Jews to their deaths in Europe, they're all related, and they're still with us. Hearing the stories and voices of these Black veterans, these Jewish refugees, compels us to take a stand for what is right, if we share the stories, if we hear them. Before my student chose the path of the killer, stealing lives, devastating families, terrorizing communities, he was a middle school student near Chicago who saw the footage of the attacks on Reginald Denny. He was terrified. He thought, that could happen to me. He did not see Rodney King the same way. He never imagined himself in his shoes. He did not recognize the humanity he shared with his fellow Chicagoan, Emmett Till, or with the Jewish girl his age whose diary circled the globe. Our task sounds simple: share these stories and help everyone recognize our shared humanity. Use every medium and art form at our disposal. And that's what we'll try to do here tonight. Roger Genver Smith, whose Black and white ancestors in Charleston, South Carolina were not supposed to mix, even in their burial places, heard Rodney King. And his solo performance, inspired by King, is currently streaming on Netflix. The international tour of his award-winning play took him to Amsterdam, where he visited the hiding place and connected to the story of Otto, her father. He will share a part of that performance with us in a few minutes. Rabbi Dr. Mayer Muller and Devin Randolph, my colleagues and friends at the University of South Carolina, saw the power of Black and Jewish communities working together. They will discuss their course, Ann and Emmett, whose title was inspired by the play of the same name. My name is Doyle Stevick, and I've been fortunate to partner with the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam since 2013. In South Carolina, we're excited to partner tonight with the Jewish Federation of Charleston for this hour. Samantha Krantz will introduce the many participants in the second half. Thanks to our partnership with the Anne Frank Center for Mutual Respect, we now present highlights from a performance program called Letters from Anne and Martin. Developed by the Anne Frank Center, our performance today features Parrish Bradley and Alexandra Gilner. Drawn from the Diary of a Young Girl and Letter from Birmingham Jail, Letters is a dramatic presentation of parallel worlds and kindred spirits in our history, Anne Frank and Dr. King. Both were born in 1929, and both were forced into confinement simply for being who they were. Yet each dared to find power in the pen and imagine a kinder and fairer world for the future. We're ready.
My dear fellow clergymen.
My dearest Kitty.
While confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statements calling my present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom do I pause to answer criticisms of my work and ideas, but
I hope I'll be able to confide everything to you, as I have never been able to confide in anyone.
I want to try to answer your statements in what I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
I don't believe that war is simply the work of politicians and capitalists. Oh no, the common man is every bit as guilty.
We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality.
There is a destructive urge in people.
Tied in a single garment of destiny.
The urge to rage, murder, and kill.
Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly.
And until all of humanity, without exception, undergoes a metamorphosis, wars will continue to be waged.
You warmly commended the Birmingham police force for maintaining order and preventing violence. I doubt that you'd have so warmly commended the Birmingham police had you seen their vicious dogs sinking their teeth into unarmed, non-violent Negroes. I doubt that you'd have so quickly commended the Birmingham police had you seen their inhumane and unjust treatment of Negroes in the city jails.
Have you ever heard the term hostages? That's the latest punishment for saboteurs. If the Gestapo can't find the saboteur, they simply grab 5 hostages and line them up against the wall. You read the announcements of their death in the paper, where they're referred to as fatal accidents.
Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging dark of segregation to say wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim,
Our many Jewish friends and acquaintances are being taken away in droves.
when you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you,
The Gestapo is treating them very roughly and transporting them in cattle cars to Westerbork.
when you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored,
Night after night, green and gray military vehicles cruise the streets.
when you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro living constantly at tiptoe stance,
It's impossible to escape their clutches unless you go into hiding. They often go around with lists knocking only on those doors where they know there's a big haul to be made.
living constantly at tiptoe stance. When you go forever fighting a degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait.
I get frightened myself when I think of close friends who are now at the mercy of the cruelest monsters ever to stalk the earth. And all because they're Jews.
We should never forget that. Everything that Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even still, I'm sure if I lived in Germany at the time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers and sisters.
Who has inflicted this on us? Who has set us apart from all the rest? Who has put us through such suffering? It is God that has made us the way we are. But it is also God who will lift us up again.
Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny.
God has never deserted our people.
Before the pen of Jefferson etched the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here.
Through the ages, Jews have had to suffer.
Before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, we were here.
But through the ages, they've gone on living.
If the inexpressible cruelties of slavery could not stop us, the opposition we now face will surely fail.
It's difficult in times like these.
Let us all hope.
Hopes rise within us only to be crushed by grim reality. And yet, when I look up at the sky,
the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away.
I somehow feel that everything will change for the better.
And the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities.
This cruelty too will end.
And in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine over our great nation with all their scintillating beauty.
Peace and tranquility will return once more.
Yours.
Yours.
For the cause of peace and brotherhood.
Anna M. Frank.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we turn to Devin Randolph.
Thank you. My name is Devin Randolph, and I'm a PhD student at the University of South Carolina, lecturer for pre-service teachers, and also trainer for the Anne Frank House at the University of South Carolina. I decided tonight to share my own personal experiences and my commitment to looking at issues such as racism and anti-Semitism. My commitment to this work stems from my own personal experiences being incarcerated approximately 11 years ago. I was incarcerated for a nonviolent offense. However, this offense itself carried a long-term collateral consequences that I would not yet understand. Not having access to knowing about rehabilitative options, not understanding my parents and their own experiences, or not understanding the public defender that now represented me, forced me to think about the choice that I made 11 years ago. That choice has changed my entire life. It has changed my commitment to issues of looking at racism, anti-Semitism, and also understanding how those experiences impact others. So when I think about issues of otherness, and I think about my current work, looking at and being a lecturer at the University of South Carolina, I'm curious about how other African Americans and others experience some collateral consequences with being incarcerated, but more so understanding how do we understand their experiences and create environments where they not only can learn to be successful, but help to navigate transitioning into society, a society that oftentimes is not forgiving, and a society that oftentimes forces us to think about the choices that we make. So a great friend, Rabbi Muller, and I thought that we would create a course that looks at how do we bring those conversations to the forefront as educators, as practitioners, as scholars. When I approach my work, my research, and looking at those issues, I bring a sense of humility from my own personal experience of being incarcerated, but also it forces me to think about how do we begin to pull back the layers and understand that we all are connected and we all should be committed to this work. I'll stop for a moment and I invite my colleague and great friend, Rabbi Muller, to talk about the course and these concepts of otherness that looks at Anne Frank and Emmett Till and their lives and their own experiences.
Thank you, Devin. And my name is Meir Muller, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of South Carolina's College of Education's Early Childhood program, and am the head of the Cutler Jewish Day School. Devin and I together have written a course titled Anne and Emmett, Confronting Contemporary Anti-Semitism, Racism, and Otherness Through Pedagogy. We hope to help adults in the class understand that the African American and Jewish American communities have an intertwined history in which we can draw important lessons in allyship, as well as learn how to speak to people of all ages, including young children, about being anti-racist and standing against anti-Semitism. Devin and I both hold the deep belief that very young children are capable of discussing these complex issues such as racism and anti-Semitism. One tool that we will teach the educators in our course is provided by Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, who explains the importance of all children having environments with figurative mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Mirrors can be books, texts, or media in which children see their own culture celebrated. So these are the books where they see themselves. They're looking into a mirror and seeing the value that their culture has and the beauty. Windows. These are texts that provide children a view of the greatness of another culture. And finally, sliding glass doors. These allow the children to enter sites as activists confronting injustice. And I've had the wonderful experience of working with first, second, and third graders. So these are 6, 7, 8-year-olds in confronting the racist monuments that are on the South Carolina State House grounds and working to shine a light on a racial activist, Majeska Simpkins, who was in the South Carolina state standards and then removed. The children were able to work on these projects, which the second one ended with a street sign being erected in Majeska Simpkins' honor. So young elementary children have the capabilities of understanding fairness, which can lead to conversations about inequity. It is often us adults that shy away from these conversations. Through the stories of the lives and murders of Anne Frank and Emmett Till, we plan to share issues of equity and activism with future educators in hopes that they will in turn share those with young children. And now I'd like to introduce Roger Gunvir Smith as Otto Frank.
My dear Anna, if I could, I would float you across the river to safety, hold you close beyond breath, mija, keeping la migra at bay, no matter the risk. Replant your beloved chestnut tree, now fallen in a more arid clime, where fathers and daughters cross rivers and borders, fronteras, drowning in love. June 10th, 2009. Washington, D.C. Holocaust Museum, and another father has fallen. In commemoration of what was to have been your 80th birthday, there was a play to be premiered that night, a play which imagined you, Anna, in conversation with another child murdered the same summer that Disneyland opened in a place called Money, Mississippi. An elderly man, white, aged 88, double infinity, the father of a son, entered the museum. A younger man, black, a security guard, he too, the father of a son, said, "Shalom, welcome." The elder man, 88, double infinity, produced a rifle, and the security guard, oh Lord, he stepped into the line of fire, dead. Not soon after arrival, it was like the scene out of the Bible, the only nonfiction book to outsell your own. And the son of the murderer, alleged, said that the wrong man had died that day, and the son of the victim, just a little boy, news cameras and microphones stuck in his face, said that he was sad and he was mad at the man who had shot and killed his dad. And the American flag flew at half-mast, and the museum put a plaque, a black plaque on the museum wall in honor of the father where he had stood. You know, on the walls of all these museums, there are maps which point to the progress of our egress, our demise. But what of the rise of this new power which still seems to be ascendant? All these swastikas still aflutter, the tiki torches on parade. There was one young American woman in a hard hat. I think that you would be proud. She climbed a flagpole in Columbia, South Carolina, to rip down the past. She was immediately cuffed. As quietly she prayed to her God, as did the congregations in Charleston and Pittsburgh and Christchurch and Poway. Where another woman, I think you would be proud. She stood in the line of fire and fell. Yes, the maps, they expand year after year, after year after year, my dear. What's that quote? I think you would be aghast. The quote about the past. The past is not the past, my dear Anna. It is not even past.
Hello, my name is Samantha Krantz, and I work for the Charleston Jewish Federation's Remember program. In Charleston, South Carolina, we are so lucky to have 8 Holocaust survivors, 1 liberator, and many children of survivors that dedicate their time to share their stories. We work year-round to bring survivors into schools, reaching thousands of students, host anti-bias trainings with the ADL, and educate teen ambassadors in our community to stand up to all forms of hate. We are fully committed to ensuring that the next generation knows the truth about our past. To take a minute to imagine a world without hate, a world where everyone loves one another, not in despite of our differences, but because of them, where we give voice to all people, regardless of their race, religion, sexual identity, or gender. Every day, anti-Semitism continues to show its dark colors in our community and all around the world. We are doing everything in our power to educate others so we can see a decline in anti-Semitism. For the last 30 minutes, you have seen presentations that show a time when Anne Frank and Martin Luther King were alive. They both had the same wish for the world, a world where they could be free and accepted for who they are. However, years later, we are still seeing hate in our world. It is up to the future generations to share the stories of our Holocaust survivors and stop genocides from continuing to happen. I'm going to end with this. A Charleston survivor, Rose Goldberg, who recently passed away a little over a month ago, left me with this message for our future generations. She said to me, "You are the future. You are smart people, and you have the chance to create change. Spread kindness and peace wherever you go." Everyone needs to hear this loud and clear so that our survivors don't have to worry about the future, but be rest assured that it is in the right hands. The next 30 minutes, you will hear a song, names being read, and a testimony from a Holocaust survivor. Next, you will watch our community that is made up of different backgrounds say why they commit to never forgetting the lessons of the Holocaust, even after 75 years since liberation of the World War II concentration camps.
75, not just for the sake of my grandparents, but for the sake of my grandchildren.
I commit to 75 because I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every child of God.
We commit to 75 to speak on behalf of those who can't.
I commit to 75 because I'm the next link in a chain of tradition and legacy that I carry on from my parents and grandparents before me.
I commit to 75 because I want to leave a legacy of learning and caring for the next generation. It'll make them better Jews for all of our futures.
I commit to 75 because it could have been me.
I commit to 75 because it's our history and we can't let it be forgotten.
I commit to 75 because we are all witnesses.
I commit to 75 to spread love, peace, and unity to our children.
I commit to 75 in order to remember those whose lives were tragically lost in the Holocaust, to honor those who were amazingly survivors, and thirdly, to be in solidarity with our Jewish brothers and sisters, to live out those eternal words, never again.
Next, you will hear a performance by the Trippingtons, who are College of Charleston students, sing Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. And it's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not somebody who's seen the light. It's a code and it's a broken hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Now you will hear the names of victims that were killed in genocides or shootings with a linkage to South Carolina. Each name represents a person that was taken too soon. This is a small portion of the millions of people killed because of hate. We remember and we will never forget. The College of Charleston students will begin. Emily, you may start.
Jacob Hamill, who died in the Holocaust. Omarovic Galib, who died in the Bosnian genocide. Nechama Goldberg, who died in the Holocaust. Sharona Coleman Singleton, who died in the AME church shooting. João Costa Sequeira, who died in the East Timor genocide. Clementa C. Pinckney, who died in the AME church shooting. Willie Freudenberg, who died in the Holocaust.
Theodore Adler, who died in the Holocaust. Kalisa Innocent, who died in the Rwandan genocide. Gagin Der Vartanian, who died in the Armenian genocide. Sarah Zuckerhorn, who died in the Holocaust. Daniel L. Simmons, who died in the AME church shooting. Victor Pablo Bochenko, who died in the Argentine Dirty War. Cynthia Marie Graham Heard, who died in the AME church shooting.
Ava Engel, who died in the Holocaust. Cecilia Maria Carranza, who died in the Argentine Dirty War. Taiwanza Sanders, who died in the AME church shooting. Gershon Kornblum, who died in the Holocaust. Shala Abedin, who died in the Kosovo War. Susie Jackson, who died in the AME church shooting. Shayna Agrest, who died in the Holocaust. And Ethel Lance, who died in the AME church shooting.
Carl Kalender, who died in the Holocaust. Carl Vepe Yacobia, who died in the Armenian genocide. DePayne Middleton, Dr. AME church, who died in the AME church shooting. David Nathans, who died in the Holocaust. Mohammed Abakar, who died in the Darfur genocide. Mira Thompson, who died in the AME church shooting. And Chaim Mibab, who died in the Holocaust.
We read these names so that we remember the millions of individuals who perished in these genocides and mass atrocities. When we look at these death tolls, it is easy for us to picture a large amount of people as a monolith. Can you even imagine a million things? It is too big for us to picture rationally, and even if we can, it is a million faceless, identical things. But by reading these names, we see their individuality. They were sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, some victims even as young as just a few months old. They all had individual lives. With each name, there is a story, and those stories were cut extremely short by these genocides. They are not with us to tell their stories, but by reading their names, remembering them, and carrying them within our hearts, we can keep their memories alive.
Now you will hear from the City of Charleston's Mayor, John Tecklenburg, as he proclaimed April as Genocide Awareness and Prevention Month in Charleston. This video was taken last year, so hopefully next year when we work together in person, we can do it again.
I really like the motto you've put together with "Together We Remember," transforming remembrance into action for all humanity. That's a great goal, y'all. Keep that up. So I've got a proclamation that was proclaimed by myself at City Council chambers just a couple of weeks ago, supported by our City Council. And it's a little wordy, I must admit, but if you'll bear with me, I'd like to share it all with you because, or most of it, because I think it sets the tone for what we're trying to do here and some good explanation and history. So this was a proclamation. Whereas the term genocide is used to describe a coordinated plan of action aimed at the destruction of the foundations of the lives of national groups, including the individual lives. And whereas following the Holocaust, and later on I'm sure we're going to recognize our famous Holocaust survivor, Joe Engel, who's with us this evening. So following the Holocaust on December 9th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution 263A, the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, declaring genocide to be a crime under international law and defining genocide to include the commission of certain acts, including killing members of a group, imposing measures intended to prevent births within a group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group with the intent to destroy in whole or part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. And whereas genocide and mass atrocities are crimes which have been perpetrated in countless instances before and after the Holocaust, and this really gets you because when I first think of the word genocide, I naturally think of the Holocaust and World War II, but listen to this list of countries: Armenia, Cambodia, Bosnia, Rwanda, Sudan, Syria, Myanmar, and even, yes, the United States through the displacement of indigenous peoples and the enslavement of African and African American peoples. So this isn't just something from the past. This is something that's still going on in our world today. I mean, Syria has been a humanitarian crisis through remembrance vigils that encourage communities to face historical traumas, but they also are going to transform remembrance into action for all humanity. I love that. So whereas educating the public about the nature and progression of mass violence from dangerous speech to genocide, and commemorating victims and survivors of all forms of identity-based violence, including the adoption of a Genocide Awareness and Prevention Month resolution, they are effective tools that will further these goals. So therefore I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of our City Council and all of our citizens, did and do hereby proclaim April of 2019.
Hello, I'm Erin Boynton, Director of Community Initiatives and Engagements at the Charleston Jewish Federation. I'm so proud to introduce to you my grandfather, Herschel Greenblatt. Herschel is a Holocaust survivor who spends his retired life telling his story to students across the nation, and he has an important message to share with you tonight.
Good evening. My name is Herschel Greenblatt. September the 1st of 1939, the war in Poland started, the war in Europe started. My father, as a 19-year-old, he and his family shoved into the ghetto of Lublin, Poland. My father fought underground as a 19-year-old, trying to resist, which resistance was so hard against an enemy that was so big. My father made an escape across the border to the Ukraine, met my mother who was resisting the Russian police. They met, married, and in the spring of 1941, I was born in the caves of Ukraine. My parents fought back. My mother was wounded by German artillery. They escaped further east. My father was imprisoned by the Russian police for stealing bread. After the war, we united with my mother, myself and my sister. Communism was upon us. My father said enough is enough. And in November of 1945, with 184, 20-some-odd families, 184 people in total from the age of 2 to the age of 93, escaped into 2 cattle cars across the vast European 1,800 miles to a DP camp outside of the city of Salzburg, Austria. There we spent over 6 years of our lives trying to get our lives back together. My father's family was totally destroyed in the concentration camp of Majdanek and the concentration camp of Belgium. My mother's family destroyed by the Einstocken group and shot in the back, and their only crime was they were Jews. Finally, we made it to the United States. Thanksgiving of 1950, after spending 6 years in a DP camp. My father took a job with a large waste company, scrap metal, got hurt. Then he bought a grocery store in an area of Atlanta called Buttermilk Bottom, a ghetto area for Black children walking around barefoot, cold. And from 1952 to 1969, my father fought back. My father could not understand people being hated because of the color of their skin. He had the fortune of meeting in the summer of 1963 a young man, Dr. Martin Luther King. And together they fought the fight to free people because of their religion, because of the color of their skin. I had the great honor of being in the 3rd grade with a young teacher named Francis Fitterman, who brought me back to life, who gave me my disciplines, who gave me my education, the start of my education. I grew up in the city of Atlanta, along with my parents, fighting against discrimination. I got my education, started a family. I was in America. I had the opportunity to become who I wanted to become. I was given that opportunity by America. Now, as I'm getting older, I have a family, grandchildren, and I have a great-grandchild. I want my family, my grandchild, my great-grandchild, to grow up in a world without hate. It has become my mission and my hope in speaking to hundreds and hundreds of school children all over the country to teach them of what happened. People hated because of their religion. They were Jews. In the United States, people being discriminated because they are Black, because of the color of their skin. I want to teach. I want to let them know that hatred has got to stop. I want to let them know not to be bystanders. If you see something wrong, do something. Don't be a bully. Respect your parents. Give them the love and respect that they need. They want you to be the best. Respect your teachers. They want to teach you just like my teacher taught me. Respect each other. Love each other. Don't discriminate because of the color of the child sitting next to you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. White, Black, Hispanic, Muslims, Jews. It doesn't matter. Hatred has got to stop. And hatred is what I am fighting against. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank my granddaughter for continuing my quest. It is very, very, very important that we stop hatred. It is important that we learn to get along with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenblatt, for sharing your story with us all and ending this hour for South Carolina with your story and your hope for the future. So thank you.
That was such an incredible hour of art and testimony. You know, we're coming to that point of the program where, yeah, I've been up for a while, so I don't know, I'm feeling a lot of things, but the emotional feelings are definitely not just because I'm tired. Let me put it that way. So just very, very grateful and humbled to be in such incredible company. Doyle and Samantha, a huge thank you to the two of you who just picked up this project a couple days ago and came together to folks in South Carolina and just brought the best of your region of this country into a 1-hour program and shared it with the world. And now it'll forever be available for young people and educators to be inspired by. So yeah, just lots of gratitude. Any parting thoughts before we transition to our colleagues from the LA Museum of the Holocaust for our final hour before the finale?
Thank you all for sharing such a wonderful and moving hour of work, of heart. My family's home is at 57 Cumming, right across the street from the College of Charleston. And this was indeed a a spectacular homecoming for me. Thank you all.
Roger, outstanding performance. Alex, Parrish, just so moved by the performances, the mixture of art and testimony. Herschel, just so powerful to hear your experiences and your moral guidance. It should be so simple, but wonderful to have. And this is all due to you, David, and your energy and your initiative, and you're carrying us forward into the 21st century here, helping to bring up this new generation of leaders. You and Samantha have been working together already for years, and here we are following your lead. We're grateful to you, and you're helping us to do the good work. So we're so appreciative for what you've done here.
It's hardly only me. Even from the very first vigil we organized at Duke 8 years ago, it was a group of 5 diverse students, and I was the most destructive of all of us, and I somehow stuck out the long journey. But it was everyone else that actually helped make the thing happen. So any of the good things that are lingering, it's things I've picked up along the way from amazing folks. I've learned so much from Samantha, and Samantha, it was so special to see us sharing recordings from previous vigils that we organized together on your college campus, and now you're working with the Jewish Federation in Charleston on collective memory Holocaust education work. So it's just really special to see your journey, and you helped design and led the Yom HaShoah program for your community. So, I've got a lot of hope for the future, and I'm very excited to work with you all much more in South Carolina in the coming year. I was going to say days. I'm going to take a break for a couple of days, and then maybe in a couple of weeks or in the next couple of years. And yes, Herschel, thank you so much for sharing your story. My sister was texting me that it really reminded us of our grandpa. There's sometimes when you hear survivors speak, it really just, certain phrases, certain things, a certain kind of patriotism triggers that for us. And you don't know when that's going to hit, but it hits hard. So we're grateful for helping us remember someone who we loved and who, enabled us to be where we are today. Go ahead.
If I may, I'm sitting here feeling very honored, number one, to be able to talk, but I also feel that the things that were said tonight are important, and maybe our message will get through. Maybe in not too distant future, hatred and discrimination because of people's religion or because of the color of their skin will just stop. It's something that just has to stop. And so thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. And on a personal note, Aaron, you're the greatest.
I just wanted to say quickly how proud I am of you, David. It's been amazing to see this whole vigil come together and to see all of your years of hard work. Really, this has been the most amazing 24 hours. I started with you last night at midnight and been tuning in almost every hour when I had a break. But I mean, just wow, that's all I have to say. I am really so proud of you, and it's been a pleasure working with you. And for anyone who doesn't know David, definitely get the chance to work with him. He will give you all the energy and passion you need to create vigils, even in the day if you need to.
Come on, y'all. You're doing like the pre-finale thing right now. You can't get me to like cry now and then cry again later.
David, on that note, I don't want to have a spoiler, but shall we at least say that there will be a happy surprise ending, even for you, for those who tune in for the last half hour?
Oh yeah, last half hour, there's going to be something so incredible. Even if there's an audience of one, that audience of one is pumped. And I know there will be at least 2, and Doyle was did some Herculean things and pulled some strings, and we were able to get an incredible person to basically join the Together Remember movement. And it's someone who I've been dreaming of collaborating with, and we hopped on the phone on Zoom. I had the whole event streaming live, and then on my computer on mute, and then I was talking to this person. So you'll find out who that is in a little bit, and I'm pumped. My fiance's happy too. She has a smile. You proud? Cool, she's proud. She kept me fed and caffeinated and all these good things. It's been a journey, and then I'll return the favor, I promise. Because she's going to be a doctor, so there's going to be many nights like this. I just do one night like this, and she'll be doing it often. All right, we should transition, allow our colleagues from LA to jump in. That was amazing. Heart is overflowing. Thank you, everyone. I hope we can be together again sometime soon, virtually, but better in person.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you guys. It was a pleasure.